being pressed from one side, there's space on the other. And then we can use 3 different ways to solve that pressure that we talk about at TKI. MAT, M-A-T, easy to remember. MAT, move, ask, touch, right? I can move into space. So whether that's backpedaling or changing my horizontal angle of support, move. I can ask for the ball into space, so I can retain my ability to defend the goal while asking for the ball into space, which will be further away from pressure and potentially set me up for the ability to play on one touch. And then I could touch into space. So using that is going to be your best friend, and which technique you use will be informed by what you see. The more you start to intentionally enter your training session with the thought process of today I'm scanning, and this is what I'm scanning for. I'm going to be really deliberate about looking for these things. Over time, you're going to feel so much more comfortable on the ball.
Yeah, couldn't agree. Everyone wants to know, how can I get more confident in possession? And like, let's go to a session I ran a couple weeks ago. It was our first session with a club that we work with. I wanted them to come up with their expectations. And then from there, I wanted them to each kind of list something that they're hoping to improve on from now, March, to June, when we're like done with that spring session. And every single one of them said confidence in possession. Everyone goes, oh yeah, me too. So it's that thing that everyone's like, I want this, but how do I get this? Mm-hmm. And I think that those are really simple principles that you can start to play in. If you're a coach, work them into your session. If you're a player, push yourself to try that.
Well, also, Tor, I think we have to acknowledge too, for the goalkeepers, is like, I did say this is the low-hanging fruit, and I think the easiest one to implement, but I want to remind you as goalkeepers that this isn't something that you can change overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take bravery. It's going to take resilience. And if you focus more of your energy on being brave and resilient and determined to figure this out, you will eventually get better at it, and you will feel more comfortable, and you will feel more confident. And we talked about this yesterday. I thought it was really cool after our training session tour, is we working with a couple players, and what struck me about them and was really fun to be part of. Like, I was getting emotional and like a little teary about it, but like,
I like that out of you.
Yeah, to see them grow is just, it's contributed to their bravery and resilience, because once they were like, oh, this is really hard for me, and they were brave to try and stretch themselves and make mistakes, and then over time they became more competent and confident, and that confidence rolled into, well, what else can I do? What else can I work on to become more comfortable in the game, whether it's in possession or out, right? And it all stems back to their character. And I know, like, for us, that's probably the most important foundation of who you are as a goalkeeper. So simply by putting more effort into being brave and resilient, you're going to get better at solving pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. And I'm just going to give one last little side note, and then we'll move on to number 2. But this doesn't come without quote unquote failure, right? We learn from saves, we learn from failures. If you're a coach listening, there has to be psychological safety. They have to know that if they make this mistake, even if it's in a game, you're not going to holler at them. You're going to support them and say, like, maybe what could you have done differently? Or what did you see? Or what did you feel? And help them work through it, rather than like, why'd you let that in? You gave up the ball in the 6. They're not going to do it again.
Right.
We want to stay away from that. And then as a player, you have to know, okay, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm not going to let that deter me from trying again.
Yeah. And one more tidbit for parents too. If you see this in games, I encourage you and I challenge you to identify it with your goalkeeper after the game, right? Yeah. I was listening to some parenting study that was done, and they had two groups. They had one group of students that the parents praised. Oh, look how smart you are. You did great on this test. Like, look what you were able to do. X, Y, and Z success, right? And they brought attention to this successful outcome. Where the other group of parents said to their children, look at the effort. I'm so proud of the effort that you put into this. I'm so proud that you continue to try hard things, or whatever it was. So it was outcome-based and effort-based. And the effort-based kids succeeded exponentially more than the kids who were praised for a successful outcome, right? So as parents, can we harness that, leverage that in our benefit, and point out the times like, hey, I really saw what you were trying to do there. That was so brave. Or, you know what? I loved the way you responded to that mistake in a game. That was so resilient. And I'm really, really proud of you. So can we, obviously we're going to praise them for great saves. That's great. Like you were working really hard on that and you were able to accomplish it. But also, can we point out the moments that maybe necessarily wouldn't be deemed a successful outcome, but it's a refinement or a reveal of their character, and make sure we bring attention back to that. Because again, I say this, I feel like on every podcast we talk about like session design, whatever you bring attention to is what you deem important. And at the foundation of every goalkeeper we believe is important is good character.
That'll preach.
Should we just end the podcast? I feel like we hit every audience member there, the coaches, the players, the parents. We should probably just do a whole podcast on that.
We could.
Yeah.
Certainly could. All right. Number 2, Jill. Something we love at TKI. Be more preventative. Can we take steps to help us be more preventative and just deny opportunities because of that action? And I think, we touched a lot on bravery. We've touched a lot on, being willing to make mistakes. And I think that this area of the game requires those same things.
Yeah, I think there's 4 ways that we can be more preventative. One is in our preventative positioning, and that's staying a bit higher off our line in a sprinter stance and making sure we have the mentality, that anticipatory mentality of, if the ball is within reach, I could go and solve this problem, right? So we want to make sure that we're in a position that maybe just our positioning vertically will deter the opponent from playing a ball in a central position behind our center backs, which is really dangerous, right? Maybe we deter that ball, or we force them or nudge them to play into the wider channel, which is less threatening for us. So number 1 is our preventative positioning. Number 2 is our variety in final actions, especially when it comes to outside the box, right? So I have the ability to emergency slide tackle. I have the ability to play one-time clearance. I can head the ball. I can chest the ball. I can touch pass pressure. Even Katie, like, emergency spread outside the box without her hands, which was, an incredibly inventive solve. And when it comes to inside the box, if I'm trying to be more preventative, I want to have the tools to be able to manage traffic and navigate traffic and have the ability to punch with either hand or both hands and having some experience with that, right? The third way that we can prevent shots and high quality opportunities is to communicate with our team, to stay organized, to limit the opponent's opportunities. And the last way is to keep possession. If our team has the ball, the opponent can't score. So maybe it would be great for players right now to just do a quick audit of, like, where do you feel comfortable? Are you vertically high and staying connected to the back line? Do you feel comfortable with a variety of different final actions outside the box? Do you feel good about your communication? And if you don't, that's okay, because communication is actually probably one of the more difficult aspects of goalkeeping, because it all relies on your game understanding, which is something that is hard to develop in some environments. And then the last one is the ability to retain possession. So do a quick audit. Where do you want to take some space? Where do you want to be deliberate this week? Ask more questions, seek out some more answers, reach out to us, ask us questions about it, and just gain some more insight so that you can be deliberate about what you're focusing on in your training.
I think being preventative is one of those things that, obviously we talk a lot about. I think if you had to ask anyone who follows TKI, they'd be like, oh yeah, they're obsessed with shot prevention, but it's so much more than what you generally think of. It's not just spread and smother, right? It's all those things you listed that can ultimately just keep favor in our hands. It can help us keep possession. It can deter opponents. It can help us communicate, right? So it's just kind of that thing that has so many umbrellas under it that I think it can be an area of, like, great growth for goalkeepers when they start to kind of take audit of where they need more support and working on that list of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in my head, would much rather prevent a shot than have to stop a shot. And I think 100%. we get the praise and the accolades, and we get lauded, for our shot stopping abilities. But if I want to be effective and successful, then I really want to not even allow those opportunities to happen as much as I possibly can.
I actually have a hot take, but I'm going to save it because that's my question at the end.
Okay, cool.
So you kind of talked about communication in here. You talked about game understanding a little bit. And I think that leads us really perfectly into point number 3 that can help you become a well-rounded goalkeeper or build into a more well-rounded goalkeeper, which is game understanding. Talked a lot about that in our podcast that we did a couple weeks ago. So again, check that out if you haven't. Highly recommend that you listen to that on the Union app. But let's talk a little bit about game understanding. What does that look like from the goalkeeper's perspective, and how do they develop that, even from a young, or maybe they're like 10 years into their journey?
That's a really good question. I think this is something that we can start as coaches. Let's start with the coaches, right? I think this is something that we can start at a much younger age than we think, right? I think when coaches get beginner goalkeepers, they think, okay, we're just going to work on the technical skills and we'll worry about the, tactics at a later time when they can, quote, understand them. But I think day one goalkeepers can understand tactics. So like, let's mesh them together. Let's do, solving pressure and set shape and diving and also athletic development and enjoyment, and talk about how we manipulate the session. Will bring some awareness into whatever you think is the most important part. But train the goalkeeper within the goal so they understand positioning, so they start to understand angles. Train them with live shots instead of doing volleys for kids who have, size 4 gloves and shrimp forks as hands.
Welcome to the Keeper Institute podcast. My name is Tori Corsaro. I'm a strength and conditioning and goalkeeper coach here at the Keeper Institute and your host for today's show. The Keeper Institute is a unique goalkeeper training facility in New Jersey aimed at developing better goalkeepers and better people. On this podcast, we will be discussing all things goalkeeping, character development, and more. Welcome back to another episode of the Keeper Institute podcast. I'm stoked. I'm so excited.
You got a whole new podcast and everything, the setup and everything. This is going to be...
I feel like you. Like, I feel cool like you.
Oh, Tor.
So I feel ready to rumble more so than we usually are. And we're always ready to rumble. It's also been a hot minute since we've recorded.
Yeah, I know. We did that batch and I'm still reeling and thinking about those conversations. And hopefully you guys are too. And hopefully it's impacted you in a certain way that it's memorable, because we don't want you to just listen to this podcast and feel really good about yourself or really good about your improvement. But we hope that it's like meaningful and lasting and something that you can implement into your game that's going to help you for a really long time, which I think today's topic is going to help.
I hope so. If it does nothing else, I hope that it like maybe just makes people think a little differently.
You know what I was thinking about the other day, and I hope that this comes across when we have these conversations, you and I, and that we invite people in to listen to our conversations, because I feel like you and I just like friends and we just kind of like shoot the breeze on these things, But I hope what comes across in our have with us or any interactions that you have with anyone at TKI is the fact that we really create a special environment for people to explore. And we really are so aware and keen to educate people on our methods and like what we believe about the position, because I just feel like in our country right now, there's nothing for anybody. Like, there's no coaching course for goalkeepers specifically that's going to help benefit the coaches where they are and meet them where they're at, because what I think we're really missing is support. And that's like the third thing that I really hope comes across on these conversations, is that there's a special environment that we can really thrive in, that there's education and that there's support. And if nothing else, then you never had a conversation with us before. If nothing else, you just know, hey, it's not my fault when the ball goes in at the near post every time. Right. And hopefully that provides a little bit of support and comfort to you, because sometimes it can feel really lonely when your coaches or parents or whoever is blaming you for something and you're like, wait, hold on a minute. That I couldn't have saved that no matter where I stood. So yeah, anyway, hopefully you guys feel that on the other end of these mics.
Yeah, I hope so. I also hope that if you're watching, you're seeing this little shark mouth right here. She won't leave me alone.
Oh, she's cute though.
She's cute. She's naughty. That's my dog. If you're listening, by the way, that's who we're talking about, is my dog.
Yeah.
You know what I feel like is like the don't get scored on your near post is like one of those old wives' tales that your grandma would say about like your hair being wet. If I go out and my hair's wet, I'm gonna catch a cold. There's a lot of times I've been out with my hair wet and I didn't get sick because I don't even own a hairdryer.
Yeah. You don't?
No.
Wow, I never knew that about you.
Yeah, fun fact about me, I don't have a hairdryer or a curling iron, nothing.
Okay, well, I would say
Flat iron.
not every American has a curling iron, so. But I would say most households have a hairdryer.
Not this gal.
Okay, Tori.
All right, let's move into the topic. So today we're going to be talking about some common misconceptions in goalkeeping. We're going to break it down for you. We're going to go out of possession first, and then we're going to talk about some of those misconceptions in possession. So you already know we're excited. We already told you that. We already gave you the air horn. So without, really going any further, Jill, tell them what number 1 is.
Okay. Well, we've already talked about the near post debacle, so let's get into it. Not every goal that is scored on the near post is your fault. And that goals can go in there and it is not savable at times. And I think what happens is that's been a goalkeeping folklore that you can't get scored on your near post. And so you know what happens though? The situation that goalkeepers over rotate toward their near post. And if you're wondering what that would look like, if just go back to the Matt Turner goal against Panama, and that's exactly what that looks like, is the fear. There's like fear and there's anxiety, and also there's a lack of education. And I'm not saying that that's what happened to Matt Turner, but that's just a good example of we're getting too close to the near post in our positioning. And it's a twofold problem. One is, of course, now you have more space to cover in the back post, right? But also, two, it just makes it more evident for the attacker on where to go. And when things are clear and the pictures are clear, there's less decisions and they're made more intuitively, which means the likelihood of being effective for the attacker increases substantially. So if we know that sometimes you could be in the right place and still get scored on the near post and you can't really do anything about it, I think it gives less fear in goalkeepers that like I can't get scored there, and it puts more pressure on the attacker to have a postage stamp type finish, right? If they're going to go to the near post, they've got to put it in like the top corner or over your shoulder or bottom corner, and it skims off of the post and goes in, something that's like a little bit of a perfect shot. So I think that's a really good one to unravel and for you guys to keep in the back of your mind, especially if you're a young goalkeeper listening to this. Your task is to explore the ability to maximize how much of the goal you can cover. And if you don't ever explore, you'll never know. And you won't ever have confidence knowing, okay, I feel really good about protecting 90+% of this shot here, while also retaining the ability to protect a lot of the back post as well.
Preach, because when you're talking young goalkeepers, positioning is so important because it's something that they can really learn how to be effective in to help them be effective in protecting the goal and learning what their range is. Because as soon as you spit some folklore, I like that you said that, at them, then it becomes like almost more of a principle. And that's not the principle you want them to be following. You want effective principles like prevent when you can, react when you must. Adjusting your vertical and horizontal positioning based on the touch and what you're seeing from the attacker, rather than something that isn't really necessarily true, because you can certainly get scored on a good goal from the near post.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, Tori, is like there's no principle there. There's no principle and don't get scored on the near post. And besides, don't touch the ball outside the box if you're a goalkeeper, and don't take anybody's legs out. There aren't many rules in goalkeeping, right? At the end of the day, the objective is to keep the ball at the back of the net, and goalkeepers are going to do that in different ways. And so that's why it's really important for us, at least, to when we're in a training session, that it's designed with principles of goalkeeping in mind.
Yeah, principles in mind makes everything a lot easier. Kind of foreshadowed one of our principles in 1v1s, which can lead us kind of into our next thing about misconceptions too, which is that you have to smother everything when you're being preventative or when you're coming out for like those phase 2 type situations. But I think that if you watch the modern game, you can certainly see that that is not the best way to handle every single shot prevention moment.
Yeah, I just think anytime you hear goalkeepers say always or never, or you hear coaches say always or never, I would probably challenge that. There aren't many circumstances that I would say are, quote, non-negotiables in goalkeeping. Maybe like one or two, whether it's end line service and positioning and body shape. Like, to me, that's a little bit of a non-negotiable. But besides that, everything else is kind of gray. So we can't have these like hard, fast rules of like, well, smother is the only and best effective option. Well, what if it's not effective? Let's just take KP, for example. Caitlin Parks works here at TKI, trains here. She doesn't have full mobility of her elbow, right? She can't fully keep that thing straightened out. It gets stuck here. So maybe actually to one side, smother's not a really good option because her arm can't fully extend across her body. So she's going to be limited to the one side where her arm is actually pretty straight and long because her other arm can't get across. So I'm not saying that everybody on here has some kind of limb problem, but we all have different capabilities and different efficiencies and inefficiencies. And that's why it's really important to get rid of these rules and ask why. Well, why? Why is smother the only option? Well, no, smother isn't the only option. It is the best option in some scenarios, and spread is the best option in some scenarios. And we have to create an environment where goalkeepers can explore which one is which. And I think both you and I would agree that if we had the choice, we would prefer to smother.
Yeah.
Because we have the ability to potentially keep possession. Where in spread, you don't really have that opportunity as often, right? So it is, let's ditch these rules. Like, let's just ditch them and let's just ditch all this traditional old thinking and start thinking for ourselves, and maybe taking some of these old goalkeeping adages and just be like, well, why? And try to figure it out on our own, or ask questions to gain more clarity, or challenge the way that we've always thought about certain elements of the game. And football is cyclical, and tactics come and go, and they cycle and they come through. But I do feel like there are opportunities within a match that all three shot prevention opportunities could arise: spread, block, and smother. And if you watch football on a weekly basis, you would see that all three of those things happen every week and are effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you see, right? And you might not even make the right decision. I might smother, and the best choice would have potentially been spread. And it's a question, and it's something that's a jumping off point for me to be like, okay, actually, I see why smother, even though I wanted to try to keep possession, wasn't my best option. And vice versa. I might have spread, the touch was really wide, and smother was my best option. And kind of like you said previously, like, you have to give these goalkeepers the opportunity to explore. And if you're a goalkeeper listening, you have to explore these different things to kind of learn what works for you.
Yeah.
You gonna hit him with the last one?
I feel like you should.
I knew you were gonna say that. Here's the thing, guys. Last misconception here: goalkeepers have to be big, tall, whatever. That you can't be short and be a goalkeeper. You can't be small and be a goalkeeper. I think that couldn't be further from the truth, because there's strengths and weaknesses in everything, and it doesn't matter if you're a 6'5" goalkeeper or you're a 5'3" goalkeeper. There's going to be things that you're good at in the game, and there's going to be things that you're not as strong at. And if a goalkeeper is effective, and if they are consistent, and if they are doing the things that you're looking for out of a goalkeeper, really their size shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah.
Now, if you're like, that goalkeeper doesn't work for our team because we play a different way in possession and they're not comfortable asking for the ball at their feet, okay, it doesn't matter if they're tall or small. That's not your goalkeeper, because that's not what you're looking for. Right. But don't let the size be the thing that, like, it's just your eye test.
Yeah. Ugh. I feel like I fight this battle on a regular basis because, pro coaches are like, well, we're not going to get anybody under 6 foot. And I'm like, well, you would miss out on some of the best goalkeepers in the world if you didn't recruit anyone under 6 foot. That's just my opinion. I don't think size actually matters. It is. It's if you're effective or not with the skill set that you have. And sometimes maybe a smaller goalkeeper doesn't necessarily fit into your system because you are more reactive and you need them to protect the goal area really well and navigate traffic, whatever it might be. And someone might not be as effective. But you know what? If you're taller, maybe you're also slower. Right. So like, we don't necessarily need to say that a size is indicative of what you're capable of doing. Right. You look at David Raya. You know what? He's 6 foot. That's it. on one of the best clubs in the world. He's small, quote, smaller. Jordan Pickford, quote, smaller. Like, it's not about the size, because you know what? Raya is very nimble. He's very agile. He's quick. His reactions and first step forward to accelerate to protect the space and come out and be aggressive. All those things he has. So what is 2 inches on his fingertips going to do that his movement couldn't efficiently do, right? So yeah, I think that if you want to listen, if you are a small goalkeeper and you are listening to this, if you want to be a goalkeeper, be a goalkeeper. Be a goalkeeper. If you love the position and you are like, I love playing a goalkeeper, and let's just say you're 5 foot, do it. That is, just do it. If you want to enjoy it and you love it and you are just feeling like, wow, I'm really progressing, I'm developing, I'm getting better, and I'm feeling so much more confident, and I'm like getting all these extra benefits of being a goalkeeper, do it. Like, do it if you love it. There's no one particular size that says, well, you cannot be a goalkeeper if you're under 5'3". Just play the game and enjoy the position. Okay. That's number one. Number two, if you're smaller, cool. Like, I think that you can be great. Let's maximize some of the other skill sets that have zero to do with height. Let's maximize our speed and our strength and our explosiveness. Let's maximize our in possession ability to solve pressure and manipulate blocks. Let's be able to understand the game so well that you can tactically organize your team against any type of opponent. Let's be the quickest goalkeeper to be able to cover as much of the goals, whatever it is. But you guys, as a smaller goalkeeper, you, one, can do it and you can be great at it. And two, we just have to be more aware of areas that you need to excel in and be able to be exceptional in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that battle is no different than what maybe a tall goalkeeper is facing as well. Like,
right.
Sometimes you'll say this, right? Like, I've heard you say it, so I'll say it. You'll look at someone who maybe is tall, but they're not the fastest, and you'll say, hey, you and me, we're not going to kill them with pace, but we have a really big frame, so we can do XYZ to be more effective in this scenario where someone who's quicker can do ABC, right? And it's, so you're facing a different set of problems, but you're still facing like an adversity, right? Because everyone's going to have that thing. And I think that more so, like, if you're a goalkeeper listening, the message is do it if you love it and find what it is that's going to set you apart. And I think for me, the message, if you're a coach and you're listening, is don't just go by the eye test. Really watch and understand a player and see what they're good at, beyond just what maybe their physical attributes are. Because physical attributes can also lie to you.
Yeah, right. 100%. Cool. Let's talk about the 3 misconceptions in possession, because I think that this is one that maybe is less clear and obvious. And these 3, I think, can really help us. And I think over time, goalkeeper coaches have said these things, and I think they've done more harm than good. So let's just dive into it. I mean, the first one, it's full transparency. I play goalkeeping in a different era where you didn't necessarily have to be, quote, like good with your feet, which is a very ambiguous term, quote, good with your feet. And I still ask that to goalkeepers today. Like, I was speaking with a pro goalkeeper the other day and I said, well, what does good with your feet mean? Because your coach says that and I don't know what that means, because their definition and my definition are completely different. And
right.
and she was like, be able to execute range of pass and blah, blah. I'm like, yes, that's part of it, being able to execute a range of pass. And just because you can hit the piss out of the ball doesn't mean you're good with your feet. It just means that you can hit it far. So let's talk about how you solve pressure, right? So anyway, being good with your feet, quote, good with your feet, to me just means being able to solve pressure and manipulate blocks to be able to create high value passes, right? So that is one thing. I did not do that well. I was not, quote, good with my feet in any definition in the standard, right? And so for me, when I became a coach, that became like my number one thing, is like, I want to understand the mental game and I want to understand the in possession, because it was so difficult for me. But why is it so difficult? And I think what I was always told is you need to know where you're going to go before you receive the ball. And you know what that did to me? It forced me that if I didn't see an immediate option, I would just kick it as long as I could, and sometimes into really bad positions and to really bad situations. And it came back to bite me time and time again, because I first didn't even know what I was looking for. I didn't know what scanning was. Didn't know that I could take a touch into space to solve pressure. And I realize now, like, wow, that was really detrimental to my development because I didn't always have an immediate option. But because I just went long every time, that put our team under more duress at times. And so you don't need to know where you're going to deliver the ball. This is the misconception. I don't need to know where I'm going to deliver the ball before I receive it always. But I do need to know where I'm going to go with it. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're getting pressed from your left side, I need to know I'm going to take my touch into space, even if I don't have an option available to me at that point. Because once that ball comes into me and I take my touch into space, by the time I get my head up, I could have an option. And by the time that I've taken that touch to escape pressure to find someone could become available. Someone could not become available. And I would still retain my ability to play a longer pass into a safe area of the field where we maybe have a numerical or dynamic advantage, a technical advantage. And that's much better to me than just lumping it up in a 50-50, quite often more 70-30 against us situation. And so you don't, as a goalkeeper, need to know where you're going to deliver the ball before you receive, but you need to know where you're going to go. Am I going to move into space? Am I going to ask into space? Am I going to touch into space? I'm going to solve that initial bit of pressure if I'm not being pressed from both sides. And there's space to work with. And then I can also find out where I'm going to play the ball once I take that touch and escape pressure. Now, that's one thing, okay? So you hear me, you're like, yes, okay, good. I'm feeling good. I want to solve pressure. If you do not feel comfortable to touch the ball into your left foot, you are massively playing against a stacked deck. You are playing with one hand tied behind your back as a goalkeeper if you can't play with your left foot. So I beg you to spend 5 to 10 minutes, 2 to 3 days a week, just working on your instep strike with a partner, spilling the tea before training or after training. And I assure you, I promise you that you will get better, because what you do more of, you get better and more efficient at.
I like that it was alongside spilling the tea. Also, you couldn't help yourself but give a little bit of like a tip or a trick. Hey, here's what you should do if that's you. If you're listening and that's you.
I mean, Tori, we've all been there, right? Like,
God,
still, like yesterday, one of our interns is working on a left foot, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit these with my left foot too, because my left foot can always be better, you know?
Yeah.
And just spending 5 to 10 minutes, and it's not even like arduous work. It's just intentional, deliberate work. 5-10 minutes. Like, I'm going to put that out on my calendar and I'm going to put it into this because I want to feel more confident, and I don't want to leave anything on the table, and I don't want to be limited in any way.
And you can self-organize while doing that. Like, you don't need your coach there. I can say, okay, it trailed off to the left. I probably hit it here. I popped it up and I didn't want to. I probably connected underneath. So that ability to develop self-organization skills is also, I think, imperative to being a goalkeeper at whatever your next level is.
Yeah. Which brings us to our next point. So when I was playing, I wanted to consider myself a playmaker, but I was not in any stretch or any capacity. I was okay with my feet. I could deliver any pass anywhere on my right foot, but
you could.
I didn't know. I didn't know how to get it there. I didn't, because I couldn't solve pressure. And I oftentimes played it into situations where the pass looked good, but once the ball got to someone, they couldn't do anything with it, right? And I had said, like, I want to be a playmaker. And the goalkeeper coach I was working with is like, you're not a playmaker. We don't want you to be a playmaker. And I was like, okay, I understand that. Like, I get that. Like, you don't want to assume risk in possession. And we have other players on the ball who are actually good playmakers, right? But I reflected back on that and I was like, who wouldn't want 11 playmakers on the field? Right? Any 11 of them could play make. And we just saw it more recently with Manny McGlynn getting an assist, right? Why can't all goalkeepers be playmakers? And I realized it's like, we could, but we aren't, because we don't have the capabilities always. And so in that position, my coach was right. I wasn't a playmaker because I didn't have those capabilities. But the more competent and confident you feel in possession, I do believe that we can be playmakers and we can dictate that first wave of attack. We can get assists. We can play balls that, are between lines and are really high value and are setting us up for success, maybe higher up the pitch. And like, I can induce a fake transition moment by getting the opponent to step onto us into a press, and then I can bypass that press and get a 3v3 higher up the field, right? Why can't I do that? We can. We just need to have the capabilities. So misconception number 2 is that goalkeepers can't be playmakers or shouldn't be playmakers, but I think we can if we continue to develop our capabilities of solving pressure, our range of pass on both feet, our ability to scan, because that's where you earn your composure, is having the range of pass on both feet and having the knowledge of how to solve pressure, but also scanning. That you earn it by doing those combination of all those things. And I genuinely believe that everyone listening to this podcast, head coaches, DOCs, goalkeeper coaches, parents, players, would all say we want more well-rounded, competent goalkeepers in possession.
Right.
And I think we can be that if we take the time to develop those skills, because I think we can be playmakers.
Yeah, I think if you have the skill set, then you won't meet a single person who's going to be like, yeah, I don't want my goalkeeper to do anything but kick it long.
Yeah.
And even if that is their style and that's what they want, they're still going to want you to be proficient in finding who they want. They don't want you just to hit a 50-50.
Right.
So I think that we are playmakers, and it's just about having an idea of what you want to do with your skill set, but also developing said skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last one. This is like like there's just some things that you're studying at the time and then you see it everywhere, or like you're in the market for a new car and you're like, wow, I never saw those red Forerunners before, and then you're like, I kind of like that red Forerunner, and then you see it everywhere. That's how I feel about this last misconception, is that in possession, I think there's probably 2 really big pieces of misconceptions, but the first one is that you always have to receive or play defeat.
Yeah.
Receive or play defeat. Like it's just everywhere to me, where the goalkeeper will play it out to a fullback's feet and the fullback waits and they wait and they wait and they're looking at the goalkeeper and they're looking for the ball. And by the time they turn up the field, they're like, oh, I didn't see any of that, because we always play it to their feet instead of playing it into the space in front of them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or we slow the play down because we play to feet instead of playing it into space and allowing the fullback to break the line with their movement and not with the ball. So I think there's moments that we need to be more mindful of, 1, receiving the ball in the space, but 2, playing teammates, especially in the wider channels, not necessarily in the inner corridors, but in the wider channels, opportunities to move forward and carry the ball forward, break that first line of pressure because we are playing it into space.
Yeah. I mean, I had this exact conversation today in training. It's like, well, that's going to get picked off. I'm like, that's not going to get picked off. Let me run as hard as I can. And remember, I'm passing and pressing, so I know exactly what your objective is here. A forward won't. And I think that it's ingrained in goalkeepers probably from a relatively young age of being like, oh, well, I have to play feet, or that wasn't connected. That wasn't a connected pass. But yeah, sure, you're connecting to their feet, but they have 0 options now versus I play them into space and they can run onto it, or I move into space, or I ask for the ball to space, and now I have a channel to play through.
Yeah, I think I would love to see goalkeepers at every level using space more to their advantage. With like asking for it into space. It's so simple. Like it's such a simple solve to just stick your arm out and say space, because now you have escaped pressure and you've given yourself the ability to still critically scan or play on one touch if you need. You've moved your opponent, and now there's different and better passing lanes that could be available to you. Yeah, I just think that it's an incredible, simple tool that most people already have the capacity to do, just never really thought about before and never really tried it before, where they were like, okay, well, I'm just going to ask for the ball over there. That's like way, way away from pressure. And actually, it's like on my favorite foot anyway. So like that just makes more sense.
I asked you to solve pressure for me, essentially. It's just nice.
Exactly. And I know that this is not a misconception, but it's also something that we've been talking a lot about lately at TKI. Is like, you are not a passenger in this game. You are not a passenger in this game. You are the director. You are the conductor. You're on that train. You are driving this train. You're not just sitting on the train going to wherever the train is going. You are driving the train. You are directing. And so we don't always have to deal with whatever we get back. We can direct what we want to help facilitate playing a higher value pass. It can help facilitate solving the problem. Because one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, Tori, is that people think in possession only has to do with you and the ball and your touch or your delivery. It's not about that always. It's about scanning, which has nothing to do with technique, has nothing to do about your touch on the ball. I don't need to have the technical ability of Messi to be good in possession. I could just be smart. I can just be smart to help facilitate, right? Like I can just be like, oh, well, the pressure's coming from this side and there's space over there. So I'm going to ask for the ball over there in that space. And that's going to help me avoid this pressure over here without even touching the ball, right? It is such a misconception that you have to be good on the ball to be good in possession. That's the fourth. That was like the bonus one that I'm super passionate about. I'm super passionate about it because you know what people will do as coaches, traditional coaches will just make goalkeepers take touch after touch after touch to work on their quote first touch. When I'm like, you don't need a touch. You don't need a touch there. And of course, you need to have some technical skill, right? But I think that we can work on that within the environment of working on tactics as well.
Within constraints, it helps you work on that realistically.
Yeah. I think probably what the real issue though is just all these misconceptions that we have accumulated over the years of goalkeeping, and we just mindlessly say them. You have to know where you're going to go before you receive the ball. You don't need to always, right?
False.
Right. And so these I would just challenge everybody that's on this call to be like, why? Well, you got to get everything in your 6-yard box. That's another misconception we could have went hard on. Right?
Yeah.
But why? What if the ball's on the ground? Right? You guys start thinking a little bit more, asking more questions, being more curious. This is your journey. You ultimately get to make the decisions. When you have coaches that saying two conflicting things, you know who it's on? It's on you to say, well, I'm not really sure about that. I feel like this one works better and more efficient for me because it's your journey. You are the goalkeeper. Even if a coach says something to you and you're like, I don't know about that. Ask more questions. Be more curious. That's the only way you're going to gain clarity around these things. And I think that's one of our superpowers here at TKI is everybody is like, well, why? Well, how can we be more efficient? Well, what's the solution? How do we make that more simpler? How do we problem solve there? I just feel like everyone is in this mindset of there might not be this laid out path for us right now, but we're going to ask more questions and we're going to go to people who know a little bit more than us and read a little bit more. And hey, this is your area of expertise. Let's talk about this because I feel like I have something here, but I'm not really sure how to articulate that or if that's right. What do you think? Break it down. And then we have goalkeepers that are coaches and work here at the same time. And so we'll put them in the sessions and we'll ask them well, how did that feel? How can we explain that better? Or, and I just feel like we're on this constant journey of trying to evolve the position and advocate for the position and support people who are playing and coaching in the position or parents of people in the position. And in order to do that, I think we have to continue to ask why. Why has it always been done like this, or is there a better way?
Yeah. Things change all over life, right? We're not doing things. Even think about this right now, right? You're listening to a podcast on your phone, probably while you're doing something else or driving. If we did things the same way we always have done them, we wouldn't even have modern technology the way we do. And I know that's a dramatic example, but that's life too. Things change, things evolve. We have to evolve with it. And if we don't question and ask why, then we don't find the most effective way to do things, which we kind of talk about throughout the whole podcast. Is it's not about just doing X. It's about doing what's effective.
And I just want to say too, before we wrap up, is that 5 years ago, we did stuff different than we did today. Right. And when we were first trying to understand the 1v1s, all we did was teach blocking. That's it.
Mhm.
That's all we did. And 5 years ago, if I would look back at some of those sessions and be like, oh my gosh, my stomach hurts, right? However, we were on that journey of trying to understand it more. And that error
100%.
brought us closer to where we are now of understanding it, right? And that error and being able to adapt, and not just that one, but I'm sure there's many, because we don't know everything and we don't have all the answers, but we're on this journey where we're like, well, we got it wrong. We really did get it wrong, and we're going to continue to try to evolve and adapt. And well, what else are we able to evolve and adapt? And I think goalkeepers listening to this who have been a TKI are able to resonate with that statement of like, wow, I didn't realize I could solve pressure that way. What else can I do? What else am I capable of doing? Because 5 months ago, I didn't think I could do that, and now I can. And so like, it just brings in you this like, what's the thing Chris always says? Self-efficacy of like, you can figure things out, and that you're capable. So yeah, like if you guys are feeling like you're going through a hard time right now, or you're starting to doubt yourself, or you feel like, man, I can't get this right, like keep going, because that might be the thing that ultimately propels you forward to evolve and adapt. And who even knows what you're capable of after that? Yeah,
that'll preach.
Well, you guys, it's been a great half hour. I love having these conversations with you. And if you're like, man, that misconception really got me, like, man, I never knew I didn't have to get everything inside my 6-yard box. What? Reach out to us if you have more questions about that. You're like, man, this goalkeeper coach is always telling me this, and I'm not really sure. Can you help me? Can you support me? I'm really curious about knowing more about this on my own, rather than just, doing what everyone tells me to do. We want to support you guys, because we've all been there, right? Tori, like in our own journeys, in our own journeys, being like, man, that coach is telling me to do that. I'm not really sure about that. And I need some more, and I need a second opinion or some more support or guidance. We don't know all the answers, but we're happy to help support you in any way that we can. And if we don't know the answer, we will work hard to figure it out.
True. But Jill's got to go, because this is what we do. We go coach. So it's time to go coach, Jill. So no question today, but maybe we'll do double next time.
Perfect. You guys, thanks so much for spending 35 minutes with us. This was a longer one for us, but we're glad that you guys stayed here till the end. If there's anything we can do to help support you, please let us know. And check us out this summer at our select camps. It's our favorite events of the year. We have different camps and curriculums this year for youth kids and for high school players. And we want to challenge you so that you guys can take your next steps in your goalkeeping career. They're in June and July. They're in New Jersey, and we will catch you later.
Catch you later.